How's everybody doing this morning? My name is Daniel, Light in the Darkness Ministries down here in San Antonio. And I just wanted to jump on here today and do a quick video of encouragement. I know there's a lot of people out there right now, you're hurting and you're going through things and there's things going on in your life. And sometimes things seem impossible. It doesn't seem like there's an answer, or sometimes what God is asking you to do might seem hard. But what we have to understand is that God loves us. He cares about us. And He has a plan and a future for our lives that goes beyond what we can even think or imagine. He says that the plans that I have for you are above anything that you could even think or ask for. And there's a perfect peace and a perfect plan that God has for your life to see the will of God come to pass in your life. And there's moments in time where we will stand on top of the mountain and we will get a glimpse of what it is that God has promised us. But we have to go into that promised land. There's a battle. And sometimes the promise is hard to obtain because there are giants that stand in front of us. There's obstacles. There's things that stand in the way. And we have to be willing to go through those things and to trust God. To trust God for the promise that He gave us, to trust God for the miracle that He gave us, to trust God for those things that He said that He was going to do in our lives, regardless of what we think, feel, what we see, regardless of what people tell us, to go forward and to press in. I think about Joshua and Caleb when they went to go see the promised land, where Moses sends them up to witness what is going on in the promise in the land that God has promised them. And there were 10 other people that went with them. 12 people go up to the top of the hill and they look down into the promised land. And 10 of them decide it's great. The promise is great. But only 2 of them saw that they could take it. 10 people said, we can't do this. It's impossible. 2 of them said, it doesn't matter what we see. God can make a way. And those 2 get to go into the promised land. They get to see the promise and the fruitfulness of God because they believed in God, not in their circumstance. The circumstances will change in life. They will shift. They will move. They will be different from day to day. But the promise doesn't change because the circumstance changed in your life. You have to be willing to go through that change. You have to be willing to go through those shifts in time and trust God no matter what happens. Because God gave you a promise. God gave you a word. God said that He was going to restore your hope. And He was going to restore your joy. And He was going to restore your happiness. And He was going to do a miracle in your life. And that doesn't change because the circumstances changed. It doesn't change because things aren't going the way that you think that they should be going. And it doesn't change because of what people say. The promise stays the same. You'll have 10 people in your life that will tell you it will never happen. You have to be one of those 2 that says, it doesn't matter what I see. I'm going to move forward. Happiness is a choice. Joy is a gift. God will give us joy that will withstand no matter what is happening in your life. Happiness is a choice, something that you choose. And you can choose to be happy every single day. It's a choice that we make in our own life. I'm going through some things right now. It's been a very emotional weekend for me and for my family. And, we had a lot of things happen this weekend, but I came out of this weekend knowing that God is on the move. Every promise, up until this weekend, it felt like everything was right within my grasp, that everything was right there. The promise was right there. And then this weekend, it was like everything flipped upside down on top of its head. And I began to feel like it was impossible, to feel like these things would never happen. Sorry, 1 second. And like it would never come to pass. And I was talking to my mom, and she told me the promise hasn't changed. The circumstances did. And that doesn't mean that the destination has changed either. It just means that right now, in this moment, there has been a shift. But the promise stayed the same. And so you have to accept those changes in your life, to move with them and believe that God can bring you through. Joseph was promised that he was going to be a mighty ruler. He didn't even really understand the dream that God gave him, just that he had a dream that his family was going to bow down to him and that he was going to be lifted up. And it wasn't a, you'll bow down to me in a cocky sort of way. It was that God was going to give him a position above where he was at right now. And that God had set him apart. He didn't understand that dream. He had to go through prison. He had to be falsely accused by Potiphar's wife. He had to be separated for a moment in time, so that way he could reach what it was that God had for him and see his full potential in his life. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have problems. Things are going to go wrong here and there, but God will be with you no matter what it is that you're going through. No matter what it is that is happening in your life, God has a plan and a purpose for your life, and you have to trust him for that promise. You have to trust him that he is going to make a way where there seems to be no way. Abraham was too old to have a child. David was told he was going to be king, and for 15 years he ran from Saul because Saul wanted to kill him out of jealousy. Sometimes God will show you the promise and then make you take a lap in the desert so that way you're ready when you go into it. Because you have to be able to trust him for the promise, and you have to be able to trust him for what it is that he wants to do. Don't give up because it seems like you saw the promise. This is to myself. Don't give up because you saw the promise, you saw what God was doing in your life, you saw the restoration, and now it seems like you're walking away from it. Because sometimes God shows you things so that way you can have hope, you can have joy, you can have peace to know what it is that he has for you, what it is that it's coming, but the timing isn't right. And then when the timing comes, because what we have to understand is that God doesn't work in his own time. In our time, he works in his own time. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. God works in his own time. God does his own way. His ways are not our ways. Don't give up because it looks like things are further away, because when it seems like the promise is the furthest away, when it seems like this is going to be the hardest, God is there for you. And that promise, it'll come suddenly. It's going to be a sudden thing. It's not going to be something that is going to happen over time. It's going to be suddenly. Suddenly the promise comes. And I want to end with this. It's one of my favorite scriptures. Here, this is 1 Corinthians 13. Most of us know this chapter. It says, though I speak with many tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand the mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. For love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. It is not puffed up. It does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, and it is not provoked to think and thinks no evil. It does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never fails, but whether there are prophecy, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, that which is in part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I am known. And now abide in faith, hope, love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. Anything God does in your life, anything God asks you to give up or asks you to take away or he asks you to wait on, he does it in love. And his love is perfect. And when we have the love of God, we have everything. Words will fade away, prophecies will fade away, all of these things will fail in life, but the love that God gives you is unconditional, and it will never fail you. I love you guys tonight. I hope that you are encouraged. Know that I'm praying for you. Know that I love you, and God is with you. Have a great day.